patrolman ever approached you? Have you ever been stopped for a speeding ticket or something like that? And they come up. Yes, yeah, they're very imposing. One day a friend of mine who's a highway patrolman let me put on his garb. Let me put on the helmet, the jacket, which must weigh 40 pounds, his holster and belt, and his boots. And you talk about feeling like a different person. Now I understood why when a highway patrolman had approached me once, I was extremely intimidated. There was great weight to what he had on. So your speech was a terrific example of critical thinking, because you took the way people appear to other people and their attire, and you put it into the eyes of the other people. Your examples were right on. But first let me say the only thing that I would suggest you do differently in your speech would have been to have had a longer ending, to kind of summarize your concepts, but I knew you were trying to do it extemporaneously, so I understand why that happened. I just want to touch on some of the really salient points of your speech. And yes, you must really be a perceptive person, because you had so many great examples of how people were perceiving you and how people perceived other people. And two examples, one word, you left out the challenge to the man on the race. You left out the word that you were going to race the Prius. Right. Okay? He made a huge assumption. And then the other thing was the silver-haired lady, how suddenly, because of your assumption, you, instead of becoming just a passenger, suddenly became a victim. And I was impressed by how one little thing can truly change reality. And that was the topic that you were talking about. But you didn't just kind of come up with examples from your life. You actually shared an experiment with us. And we thought it was a great experiment because that's where you introduced humor. Is your wife getting dressed up to go to the car wash? Why? And so you saw how she was treated, and then later on you go to the same person dressed kind of casually, and you don't get any of the same treatment. And how, based on what day you went to the Nugget, you were given the cup of coffee, or you were given the discount on the cup of coffee, or whatever it was, but when you were dressed up, you got the extra benefit, so to speak. I think you really succeeded, and that was one of the things you have to do. Did you make the close of the sale? Yeah, you really closed it, because I don't think now I'll say anything. Well, maybe to other people I will, but not to you. I'll be really careful on what I say to you and how I appear to you in the future, because you're so perceptive of it. Let's see. The other thing, the other important part wasn't just the assumptions that people make about us because of the way we're dressed, but it's also the expectations that people have. And I think that's really, really important, is because when you do make that first impression to other people, the expectation you have to either live up to it or not live up to it. And what I really liked about your speech is that in spite of the fact that some of these seemed really like you must have made up the examples, you weren't hindered by necessarily being bound to truth or bound to facts. You were really mendacious in your speech. I know I didn't have to do that, but I thought it would.